Hello again and welcome to another episode of The Island Connection. I am your host, Corey, and I have an amazing, special person. She's just wonderful from the inside and out. She's going to be discussing her journey with alopecia. And so, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Miss Shantae.
Hey,
How are you,
honey? I'm doing good, Corey. How are you?
She excited and nervous at the same time.
So we're going to make this do what it do.
No, I don't know. I'm trying to remember when we first met.
Oh, my gosh.
It's been years.
Yes. I think when we first met, you may have been in high school, maybe first year high school, middle school.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I just remember seeing you. You had all this long hair at church.
Yeah.
And we were in junior minstrels together, the little youth choir, and you were just you were there. And I would always look at you and be like, man, I want that hair. You had so much, everybody loved your hair.
It was a lot of hair.
Woo, and it was, y'all, it was thick.
It was a lot of hair.
It wasn't just like long. It was thick and long. Like thick. And all you could see was her little face. And then you had all this hair. You remember that?
I did. I did have a lot of hair. I was telling you, a mutual friend of ours used to call me Care Bear or Hair Bear.
Hair Bear?
When we were in college, she used to call me Hair Bear.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
I can see why though.
Yeah, because I had all this hair and this little bitty body. So
now, what brought you to Tennessee?
I actually, I'm from California, from Southern California. So I actually came here to go to school at Fisk University. So when I graduated, I ended up staying.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
So you like Tennessee?
Nashville kind of grew on me. At first, when I first got here, it was like, okay, people live here and stay here, because it was like, what do y'all do? It's like everything
was it
closed.
slow?
It was real slow back then. It was
yeah.
like when I came here, I graduated in '85, so I was here in '86, from '86 to '90 at Fisk.
Wow!
And it was like, okay. It was like Friday night football, that was the thing. But other than that, there was nothing else to do. It was like everything closed, all the stores and restaurants, everything was closed at 9. So I was like, oh, okay, but so much has changed since then. And Nashville just kind of grew on me. And after I graduated, I came back and stayed. And I've been here ever since, pretty much.
By yourself?
By myself, no family. All of my family is in California and Texas. So yeah.
How was that though? Transitioning without your family?
Well, yeah, it was definitely an adjustment. You go through your rebellious stages. I had met somebody and I was like, oh, I'm gonna stay here. And Mom and Dad was like, it's not gonna work. And I was like, it's gonna work. But when it didn't, I was like, I refused to move back home because I didn't want to hear I told you so. Right. So that was so I had to make Nashville work. Nashville had to work, So so I made it work. So
wow.
Got here and got into church, started going to born again church, and that was a big move for me. Finding a church family, and it really felt like family and everything. So and just getting involved and that
you were in sports too.
Yeah. So I finally, apart from church and singing, singing was my thing.
Always singing.
So after
front row, that means she got a voice. Okay, but go on.
So I started playing women's softball. And, because I grew up in a family, all of my brothers, I was just a family of boys and me, the only girl with the cousins and everything growing up. So, my family was very active in sports. My dad was a big football coach, so I would, hang out with them and follow them everywhere they go. I was their biggest cheerleader. Wow. But, so I started playing softball, just kind of stay in shape and just get active and just kind of have a little balance outside of everything that I was doing. So, I, just tried to stay active,
You are always doing something.
Yeah. It keeps you young.
Definitely, because you definitely look young.
Well, thank you. I'm trying.
I was just telling her before this podcast, I was like, you look so young.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell me your journey from, you all grown up, of course, and so what happened, well, first of all, I'll go back because I end up just scrolling through Facebook like I always do. I never before the podcast post anything, but I would always just scroll through just to see how people doing, because people, always post things.
Right.
And then I came across your post, and I was like, this is not her. So then I went back, because you were best friends with my sister, my older sister at the time. And so I went back and I looked again. I was like, that's her. And so then I reached out to you. But I want you to tell me that journey, like what that looked like for you when you were going through that. Like, because you were still here by yourself, single. So what transpired to where all of this started happening to you?
Okay. So just kind of a little background, kind of, before that all started. Initially, which will kind of, end up or, kind of roll into where I am today. I kind of had, when, growing up, I kind of was dealing with a lot of kind of self-esteem issues, as far as, my outward appearance, never feeling like I was good enough or attractive enough, so to speak. So just kind of putting that a little pin in that right there. When I first noticed the hair loss, I was like driving down the I-24 and, the midst of rush hour traffic. And you know how you just get frustrated and you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that a slick spot? Yeah. So I felt that. I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? So when I got home, looked in the mirror, and sure enough, it was a slick spot, where hair was just missing. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And then maybe a couple of days later, I kind of did the same thing on the other side, and I felt another slick patch. So at that point, I immediately, tried to get in touch with try to get an appointment scheduled with a dermatologist. And sure enough, when I went to meet that dermatologist, they looked at my scalp and everything, and the doctor said it was alopecia, and they call it alopecia areata. So at that time, when I discovered that was like in the summer of 2023.
Wow.
That was in 2023. So when I met with that physician, they gave me some cream to put on these, two little spots that I had. And he says, well, hopefully this will put this here and your hair will grow back or begin to grow back, and we'll test you again in another 6 months.
But I'm surprised you found those little spots. Because
Exactly.
again, you had so much hair.
Because I've never had any issues with my hair. And I was, as you know, I was the one that would always get my hair done every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
And I was never one that had, was into wigs, weaves, or, extensions or anything like that.
And your hairstylist never said anything.
No, because when I tell you that all of this was sudden, it was sudden. So like just the discovery of those two patches. And then I started putting the ointment in there. My hair, the hair started coming back through there, because my hairstylist would notice then, because I told her. And then that was maybe the summer of 2023, but moving forward to like the middle of February, 2024, I had still going to my hairstylist, going every 2 weeks. She had known. She said, Shantae, she said, what's going on with your hair? And I was like, girl, what you mean? She was like, you've got, these slick patches, more slick patches in your head. And it's kind of looked like it's getting, but she said, well, we're going to kind of watch it. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was getting kind of nervous about that. And then when I went back 2 weeks later, I had lost more hair. So when I tell you, my hairstylist kind of discovered this between, the middle of February. I still had a full head of hair, with the exception of those patches that I had discovered.
Yeah.
But from the middle of February to the end of March, I had, between that time from the middle of February to the end of March, I had lost all of my hair by the end of March. When I tell you my hair was coming out that fast, it was coming out that fast. Because I remember one time, one of the weeks I had went to church, and I was like, man, it's really thin. You can just pretty much see my scalp. 2 weeks later, I had lost so much hair. I just couldn't even go to church because I didn't, understand what was going on.
Wow.
So I had switched to another dermatologist, a black female, dermatologist that dealt primarily with black hair loss. And she started running some tests. I had also met with my primary care physician. She started running tests, and she even did a scalp biopsy. And when it came back, because the confusion was, or the concern was, why was I losing so much hair so fast?
Yeah.
Even with the diagnosis of the alopecia areata. And so when she did the scalp biopsy, it came back that, it was alopecia. and they conclude, and even the diagnosis from the pathologist was very, confusing. They was like, well, she's got, this alopecia areata, but also some kind of I think it's referred to like a male pattern kind of baldness or whatever. But I've never had any issues with my hair. And so then they determined that alopecia has been dormant in me because alopecia it is hereditary. And then I found out that my uncle had it, my mom's brother.
Really?
Yeah, and he's completely bald. No hair on his body.
But you don't think about that with a man.
Because I'm just So I never gave it any thought, never. And no one else and no other family members in my hair that I know of, has issues with their hair. Wow. So and they said the alopecia had been dormant all this time, but it was triggered by ongoing emotional stress that I had been dealing with in my life.
And I hear that, I did not know this, but there's a lot, it's like a growing thing now where a lot of Black women are losing their hair to alopecia. And if you could talk more about that, like what is the cause from it?
So the thing is with alopecia is it's more common than you think. And it seems like you said, as of late, there's more people coming out and speaking about it. Yeah. And when you think about it, there's a lot of women out there that deal with alopecia and have dealt with it for years, but they cover it up with wigs, so we never know.
No, yeah.
And then I've heard of it before, but then I started hearing more about it after Jada Pinkett Smith diagnosis when she came out with that, and I was like, oh wow, alopecia. No, it's hereditary, but it's so much more to it.
Yes.
And that was kind of the hopes with this podcast, to be able to bring more awareness to it.
Absolutely.
And then for people to understand it's a lot more common than we think. Wow. And it's definitely a journey, because like I was saying before at the top of the podcast, of how me growing up and dealing with self-esteem issues, dealing with appearance and everything. When I tell you, it was nobody but God. When I first got that diagnosis and my hair came out so fast, Corey, and just how I was, and I cried. It was very emotional. It was very difficult. And a lot of that time I went through it alone.
Yeah.
Because it's like you don't know what to do. And then I, just listening to my doctor, and they said, well, Shantae, you're probably going to lose all of your hair. Which is alopecia. What is it? Totalis. That's basically when you lose all the hair on your head. Then she told me, she said, but there's a possibility that you can have alopecia universalis, which is what I do have, which means I have absolutely no hair anywhere on my body.
Nowhere at all?
Nowhere.
Like your legs?
Nowhere.
You used to be so hairy.
Nowhere. None.
Wow.
None. So all of my hair came out. After all of the hair on my head came out within 4 to 6 weeks, probably maybe a couple of months later, I started losing my eyelashes and my eyebrows. So I have, no eyelashes and no.
But your skin, she's got like baby skin. It's so smooth.
Oh, thank you.
So smooth.
It's called drink water.
And
like
smelling good. Yeah. I'm like, who is this new person?
So it's definitely been a journey. And when you said journey, and like you said, this new person, I definitely spent a lot of time in prayer. During that time to get through, because like I said, the enemy will use what you've been through and bring it back up, especially in this time when I said I could have shut down from life, because dealing with, past self-esteem issues. And it was like I said, I know it was nobody but God that got me through it, because when I tell you something rose up in me and said, hey, I could shut down from here and then just shut out of life. And I was like, but no, I still got to work. I still got to get on these calls. I still got to get on camera to deal with these people at work. I still got to go to church and different things like that. But God said, well, hold on with the church thing. It was like, you need to take some time for yourself. You need to step back and process this.
That's good.
It doesn't mean that I don't love the Lord, and I'm just trying to rebel. No, it was like, this is an emotional thing. Yeah. I could have easily shut down, but God.
Yeah. You needed that secret place.
Yes. And during that time I started journaling, and the Lord began to speak to me about just this place. It was like, okay, this is who you are now, so what are you going to do with it? And it was like, okay, it is what it is. I lost all of my hair, but I cannot shut down. So how
was work going to work?
So
during this process.
Right.
Or even church. You were saying
exactly.
Yeah.
So when it first started happening, it was happening quickly, trying to figure out wigs, and that's a whole thing. Because you can't just put a wig on your head, because it might make you,
Right.
you 58, you might look like you 74. So, you're trying to go through that whole process and trying to get comfortable with that. So that was a challenge. Because when I had, with things moving so fast, I jumped into had a wig made. And it didn't quite fit me right. It just didn't look like me. It was just heavy and overwhelming. And, it felt like, made me feel like I was old looking.
Yeah.
And, trying to do that, I was on the worship team and trying to sing, and in the middle of your head, in your mind, you're thinking about, is this wig gonna fall off?
Right.
It's like, oh, I'm not comfortable. Is it tilted right? Is it laid right?
The reason why it's like that for her, because she ain't never had to wear any weave, no sew-in, none of that. See, we can understand that. We can be everywhere, and we know how to. She wasn't used to any of that at all, because you had so much hair.
Yeah. So it was definitely adjustment, trying to learn how to do that. But that was part of having to step back from ministry.
Yeah.
Because that became a focal point, a focus. So worrying about if my hair was gonna fall off. Who knows if this is a wig? Yeah. That takes everything off of God.
Yes.
And there's
distraction.
No way that right.
Yeah.
Right.
That huge distraction.
Yeah.
And then the enemy. Whoo.
Oh yeah, plays with your mind. It's like there's ain't no man gonna want me, and something like that. It's like people gonna stare. And talking about the people gonna stare. Last Saturday was the first time that I've come out of the house without a hat or wig on my head.
What?
Yes, because I had woke up. I had a few outings that I needed to go to on last Saturday, and I was like, you know what? I don't feel like it. I don't feel like putting on no wig. I don't feel like putting on no hat. And I'm like, I don't care what nobody, thinks. They just gonna have to stare. It's like, it is what it is. I just don't feel like it. And it was like, girl, we gonna go and do this. It was like, but you cute though. So we gonna roll with that, right? So, I went on out, and I'm just like, here it is. And, I received so much support and encouragement, at the events that I had to go to. And that kind of gave me the boost that I needed, to continue and know that I do it. So today is the second day that I've actually come out. So, So
what was it that broke that chain, that mental chain for you?
For me, it was... It's a conscious decision. It's a conscious decision, because it's either, are you going to stay in an area of defeat? Yeah. Because this situation is here now, and I've had this conversation with myself. It's like, this situation is here now. There's nothing you're going to do about it. You can do about it. Your hair is going to either grow back or it's not. So if it doesn't, what are you going to do? Yeah. And I chose to push forward. I started doing research about wigs and eyelashes, trying to figure out what eyelashes was going to work for me. And like I told you earlier, I had lost, my eyebrows. So I looked at, doing ombre brows and got that done, just things that would help me to enhance my current, my current situation. And it was all about, okay, it's like, now this is the time to rediscover yourself, redevelop you. That's and beautiful. Walk in authority, walk in positivity, walk in confidence. Yes. So and it was like all of these things that I hadn't in the earlier part of my life. So it's like, now, okay, we're gonna walk in these things now. And it's to the point that I don't care. I know that I'm attractive. Yes. I know that, I have this inner beauty, and have discovered this outer beauty that I never thought I had, prior to now. So, I look at it, as I look at this season as a blessing. Honestly, I really do. A lot of people would say, well, if I've also had people who say, well, it's just hair, no. If you especially if you're one that's used to wearing wigs or whatever, that's an easy statement for you to say. But like we've already talked about, if you're not used to those things and it's gone all of a sudden, you're having to learn how to regroom yourself.
Because it sounds like you hid from
Yeah, and
You know
I've had people tell me that it's like you really hid your outer beauty, even though there was nothing wrong with how you were looking.
It
before.
wasn't,
but
it was
it's
all
like,
hair.
Yeah,
and then you would see this little bitty face, but it was all your hair.
Yeah,
and it was just like, but now, like I see you.
And that's
the glory is like all on you.
It's like you out there,
right.
out there, girl. Let's do it.
Y'all ain't seen that yet.
It's beginning. It's really beginning,
and it's getting hot out here too. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So when I tell you, just making this transformation within a year, and the confidence that I've developed now, the confidence that I have into who I am, and
But I feel like God had to take you aside and just kind of go through that whole thing before you went back out.
Yeah.
So how has it been seeing, people that you normally see, friends or whatever, and they see you with your hair like that? Have they ever said anything kind of like, why would they say something like that?
Exactly.
Like that? Yeah.
So the people that I've known for years have been very supportive, especially since they've heard, my story. And it's kind of ironic that you would ask that, because, I've been born again for like over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I had went to a gathering one afternoon with people that I've known for over 20 years.
Yeah.
I tell you, when I walked in that room and I said, "Hey, how you so-and-so? How you doing?" They looked at me like, "Hey, I'm good. How are you?" Didn't even recognize me. So I was like, "I'm gonna give you a minute, and I'm gonna come back around." I tapped her on the shoulder. I was like, "Hey," so I know you didn't recognize me, So it's like, oh my goodness. So yeah, I've had that, and that was knowing that you've known these people as long, and for them to not recognize you, it's a thing.
That's how much hair was.
It's a thing, So to realize that there were people, your appearance or how people perceive you or whatever changes. So, but I've had, thankfully I've had a lot of support. But a lot of it, I've had to go through it alone. But I still had the support. But just kind of the as far as the outward grooming and finding a style that was gonna fit me. My whole style, the way that I dress and everything is totally different now.
What?
Yeah, it's totally different because I probably dress more conservative.
Yeah, you were always covered.
Yeah. Well, no.
I mean, you were covered with all this hair.
Yeah.
And then from neck down, you were covered.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah.
She got on a t-shirt today, y'all.
Corey ain't seen me in a long time. Believe me, it ain't been like that. Believe me, it has not been like that. So,
but you look so good.
Well, thank you.
You do. Now, you were talking about, I know we had a phone call before coming on here. You talked about the stress level that you dealt with. And what was that stress from?
Okay. So the stress that pretty much triggered the onset of the alopecia areata. So I had dealt with my mom's passing. My mom was pretty much everything to me.
Yeah.
And she had passed from this onset, I'm going to say maybe 7 years. She died in 2010. So it was probably maybe almost 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I was still dealing with that because I had, was here. And then I had packed up, moved back to California to deal with her and, and just be there for her. And then I came back. But I think what really was the biggest trigger of the stress is when my brother passed. My brother was my best friend, and he died from COVID. He died the very first year of COVID. He died in 2020. September 11th. 2020.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. He died right before all the vaccines started coming out. And when he passed, I lost my grandmother a year later.
What?
This was my mom's mom. I lost my grandmother a year later. And she and I had developed our whole new relationship when my mom passed away, because when I moved home, she and I spent a lot of time together. So we developed this wonderful relationship. And I thank God for that time too. And then 6 months after my grandmother passed, my favorite aunt passed away 6 months later. So you're talking about dealing with 3 deaths within a period of maybe a year and a half of people that were closest to me.
Yeah.
So it was like all of that was gone. All of that was gone. And, you know, I've always been one that kind of holds stress in. Nobody would really know that I was dealing with stuff.
Yep. You did.
And then, too, when my brother passed, decided to sell my mom's house in California. And then, so, you know, when he passed and trying to sell that house, it all went into probate dealing with. So it was a lot of stress.
That's a whole lot.
Yeah. So, you know, waiting for a buyer for my mom's house and you know, still got to maintain the house. To, you know, so I was paying mortgage at her house and my mortgage. So it became very.
So
very
you were like
stressful.
back and forth?
No. Mm-mm. I was here in Nashville the whole time. But it's still, you know, just making the transaction to make sure, you know, those bills were paid.
Yeah.
You know, dealing with that and my brother's kids, my niece and my nephew. So we were, you know, paying the mortgage on my mom's house and my house paying the mortgage on my house for almost 2 years. Woo! So that was a stress. So that was a big stress, big stressor. Yeah, and then also at the same time dealing with my brother's death, my grandmother's death, and my aunt's death. All in that same time period. So it was I'm honestly surprised that it took as long as it did.
Yeah.
For my hair to come out, you know, for that to kind of wake up in there. So yeah, that was a lot. Lot to deal with. I didn't think I was gonna make it through that time, but yeah, it was a lot.
Wow.
It was a lot to deal with.
Out.
Yeah.
You came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's a lot.
It is.
Oh, that's a lot. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So yeah, and then kind of going back to answer your question of, you know, the different things that can cause it. You know, there's different types of alopecia. It's not just mine. You know, alopecia areata in particularly deals with, you know, circular slick spots that you may find in your head, and then I know there's others you have where, you know, your edges just may come out, or you might have male pattern baldness. So there's various types.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't realize
there's
that.
various types of alopecia depending upon the hair loss pattern, as they call it.
So is it about stages? Do they do like stage 1, stage 2?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
It's just how your hair comes out. Like mine came out in circular slick patches. That's one form of alopecia. You have some, I think it's called like retraction alopecia. You have some that's like, you know, kind of like a male pattern baldness can be a form of it in women. Yeah, wow. And then some people just may lose their edges, you know, it keeps going back or whatever. So yeah, there's various types of it.
So how would you encourage someone if they're just finding out that they have been diagnosed with alopecia? What would you say to them?
I would tell someone who's just found out that they've been diagnosed with alopecia, do your research. Know what you're dealing with, and know the different stages as to how extensive it could be. Research treatments, you know, just figure out what's best for you. I would also say the main thing is do your research and then just be prepared. I mean, it's a state of mind. It really is.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like mentally, what advice?
Oh my gosh, mentally, you've got to find a good support group. Your friends, if you got people that you can talk to, you know, your church family, or just, you know, like I said, research helped me to kind of you know, move things forward as far as finding the best wig that'll work for me, you know, the eyebrow and the lashes, finding the best type of lashes that would work for me. And doing a lot of reading, being, you know, knowledgeable about what you're dealing with and what you're going through. And at the end of the day, it's about getting comfortable with it. You've got to find a level of comfort that works for you. As fast as I've had to deal with it, I know that was nobody but God that I've embraced this and gone through to the point where I am today within a year. And many people are not that. I know in talking to other people, finding support groups on Facebook, you know, kind of, you know, going out there and putting your story out there and listening to other women's story. You find out there's so many people. There are so many support groups and different, chat groups that you can get into to talk to people that are going through exactly what you're going through.
So you're going through it. It's like two things that you're dealing with. You're going through it. You're having to do research on that, but then you're also having to encourage yourself and build yourself up at the same time while you're going through all of that.
And it's definitely a state of mind. It's a conscious decision that you have to make. Where are you going to be with this? Your choices are few. You're either going to deal with it and grow and develop, or you're just going to shut down and just be done with it. And just kind of come into a hole. But you've got to look at it as okay, I'm here now. Where do I go now? What do I want to do now?
Absolutely.
So it's definitely a conscious effort, and it's
and it
not
doesn't
an easy
define
journey.
who you are.
It does not
at all.
If anything, I looked at it as an opportunity to redefine who I am, and just kind of come out and just be a whole person. All of that I wanted to be.
Because you're definitely glowing.
Well,
Thank you. Like, it's like I see it. I see the confidence. You used to be so quiet. You would just be quiet. You would do your own thing. And, like, you stayed with us one time when I was growing up. You stayed with us, and I would hardly see you. I would see her go out, and then I see her come in. But that was about it. You were always like this independent, quiet person. You would show up to places that you didn't show up, but you weren't always just like, hey, that, out. But like now, it's like a whole new you.
It's a whole new me, and a lot of people are surprised. They're like, okay.
Because we used to you being quiet.
I've always been a quiet, reserved, just timid. And with this, it's like, God, show me, you don't have to be that person no more.
He's calling you.
Yes. and I believe that, Corey. And I believe that. Because when you called me and asked me to do that, I was like, to do this podcast, I was like, and even before, I was like, Lord, I want to share my story because I'm just excited. I'm excited and proud of me and how I've handled this whole thing and how I've handled it and how I just grabbed it by, grabbed the horns by the ears or how that thing go. I just grabbed hold of this thing and decided that I was not going to let it defeat me. I am not going to be that defeated person. Wow. I said, and I started in my journal, I said, I am not going to hide from this. It is what it is.
Yes.
I don't have no hair. I hope he comes back. But at this point, I don't have no hair. It is, and I remember saying that was my turning point. It is what it is. What you're going to do now. It is what it is. So what are you going to do now? And I chose to just move forward and just got excited about, well, I'm going to, just redevelop me. Let me try some things I was just always shy of trying. Because eyelashes, I was like, eyelash, put my little mascara on, I'm going on my way. So it's been an exciting journey.
I
really
believe that God is showing you, like, hearing your story, I believe that God was just showing you, like, you're beautifully and wonderfully made. Like, He created you and He wants you to shine through. And I was telling my sister, this is not too long ago, I said, I believe that the people that will always be in the background, part of all that, I believe He's calling them to the forefront. And I've always, because, for me, I was never the one to be in front of camera either. So we talked a little bit about that.
Right.
But to see now where God is taking you and how, He needs somebody.
Exactly.
And He chose you.
Exactly.
And you probably never thought in a million years.
Never. Because I was like, you grow up and you be like, well, Lord, what is my purpose in life? But in the midst of going through this, it was like God was saying, tell me and begin to reveal some things to me. It's like, you're gonna be a voice for this. And it's it was just bubbles of excitement within me. It's like, okay, because I've always, like you, I've always been that behind the scenes person. I've never wanted to be up front. I didn't have to be seen. I was like, then that's why, by nature, I'm a coordinator. And, just a, management of things behind the scenes to make things happen, make other people shine. And, so it's like, I just feel like God is bringing me out. Just even in the confidence in myself now. And I feel like, He's going to do so much more. And I'm like, I'm just excited. And like, when you give me the opportunity to share my story, I'm like, because it's not for me.
Right.
You know, it's
That
like,
is
because
so
like I
true.
said, I don't need to, be in front, but
You do.
yeah, but it's like, it's so many, it's like we talked about earlier, there's so many people that are dealing with alopecia and that they're hiding, and that a lot of people that they're connected with don't even know that they're dealing with it.
Yeah.
And it's because, the alopecia, you come out with your bare head, it there's some kind of a social stigma behind it. First thing that a lot of that I dealt with is like people are like, "Oh, are you sick?" Oh, it's like, "Oh,
yep."
I hope
Automatically think you got cancer.
They automatically think you, yeah. So and then you get the stares. It's like, "Oh,
Yep.
okay, well, why did she cut her hair off?" And and a lot of people that are coming, especially there's some folks that I ran into this weekend. They thought that I cut off my hair by choice. But no, it's not a choice.
And can I say this? I need for parents to talk to their young children and to not have their young children just staring at people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that is, get them culturally involved in different things to where when they see it, just like they see you, it's nothing.
Right.
But kids have a tendency of just staring, and then you even got older people staring at you, talking, I wonder what happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just too much.
Yeah.
It's too much because of the way our society is set up.
Exactly.
And how we're supposed to look at certain people.
Exactly.
But yeah, I just, and there's some people I know this one particular lady I used to work with, and she wore a wig every day when she found out that she had lost her hair.
Wow.
And she said, I don't even take this wig off at night.
Wow.
She said, I leave it on 24/7, which let me know that she hasn't come to grips with. And, for her, because she was like, and she said, I just don't look good. But I was like, that is a trick of the enemy.
It is. It really is.
Letting you know how you're going to look without it. But I'm thinking, if God allowed this to happen, there is a reason for it.
Exactly. And that's the approach that I took. Like I said earlier, it's a conscious decision. And it's as quick as I've gotten to the point where I am now in this year, somebody else is not going to be able to do that.
Right.
It's
I
a
commend
process
you for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a process, and you got to do it in your own time. A good friend of mine told me. I said, well, girl, I don't, it's getting ready to be summer, and I don't want to have to wear it and she said, Shantae, she said, you've got to be the one that's you've got to be confident and comfortable with coming out with your hair.
Yep.
Everybody can say, girl, you got a perfect shaped head. You would look cute with, coming on out. Come on and do it. No, at the end of the day, you still got to get to that point.
That's it.
But you got to take that step.
Yeah.
Because if you got to get to that point, find your level of comfort, you'll never get there if you don't try.
That's so true.
So I am so thankful that, this past Saturday that I said, I was going to come out, because I gave myself a goal, a timeline, because I said, look, it's going to be summer. I don't want to be in no wig, because I hate the way wigs feel on my head.
And it be hot over here.
Yeah, hate it. And, I just want to get to the point. I don't want to care. I don't. And I've lived most of my life, being worried and concerned about what people thought about me. Yeah, my outward appearance. Yeah, so just keeping my hair done or whatever, But like that now, I don't care.
She down in the raw. She done came out.
I don't. So, but I thank God for the growth and the maturity. But I would like to say to all those that, are watching the podcast, just be aware.
Yes.
Be informed and be sensitive to somebody else's journey.
Yes.
So that's the key. Just be aware, be informed, and be sensitive to what someone else is going through. Because you see somebody that doesn't have any hair, you think they have cancer. Well, it may not be.
It may not be that at all.
Yeah, it could be something else.
Yeah.
And it's not always a choice, because now you see a lot more women coming out with their bald hair because of the young lady from the movie Wicked.
Right.
But it's not a fad for some. It's not for me. It's not a fad. It's not a style. It's not something that I wanted to try. It wasn't a choice, so to speak. All of the hair falling out and everything. I didn't have that. Wasn't my choice.
Right. Because she still would have been high.
I still would have had my hair. I was
definitely
actually supposed to get my hair done this Friday. Because I had my schedule set out every 2 weeks. So this coming Friday would have been my scheduled 2-week hair appointment.
And she would not be here on this podcast
wouldn't
either.
Be here. Wouldn't be here.
So it's just
Wouldn't be
amazing.
here.
I want to ask you if you would come back
I will.
on this
Yes,
podcast.
Yes.
Because I want to talk to you too about another episode.
Okay.
I'm just telling you about this
Okay.
now.
Okay.
But to talk about dating and you thinking about dating, or if you ever thought about dating, and what that whole process looks like to
now.
you now.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
love to
Yeah.
have you on that, and just talking about different stages of going through certain things like that.
Yeah, I'd love to. I would love to. I would love
Well,
to.
I want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Y'all, I'm so glad she came on, and she's going to be back on this podcast. But I would love for you to do this. I would love for you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And any questions that you have for me related to her, I will let her know. And so that we can, answer any questions you may have concerning alopecia. Or if you're just going through something like this and you just trying to get a support or anything, and you want to know what type of support system she's with or whatever, let me know, comment in the chat, and I will definitely get with her and we'll talk about that. So thank you again for watching. Until next time, we'll see you next time on the Island Connection. Bye.